Welcome to A More Brilliant Life. We share inspiring stories from people who hit rock bottom, faced their challenges, and transformed their lives. Learn how you can rise above expectations, discover who you are, and reclaim your future.
People need to come to their own awakening, that own self-awareness piece. I can't make them, I can't do anything for them until they want that. But sometimes we need to ask those questions to help them realize what they really want and desire in life.
And have you seen the shift happen? Have you seen it?
All the time.
Yeah. All right. Welcome. My guest today, welcome to A More Brilliant Life podcast. This is the podcast where we talk through people's life transitions. I love hearing how people went about their pivots in life. So when your transformation from person A to person B, person who you were, person you are today. And my guest today is Gwen Russell, and she has an amazing story to tell, an amazing transformation. She's got, basically it's Gwen Russell 1.0, and today is Gwen Russell 2.0. And so I want to hear all about it. But Gwen, let's start in chronological order. Let's just go back in time and let's hear about your old life. Let's hear about who you were. Give me like a description of what your daily life was like in the past, and who the past Gwen Russell was.
All right. Well, good morning to you too, Jacob. Thank you for having me on your podcast. That's an honor. Also, and yeah, I do have a story to share, and we could probably talk for 24 hours straight about my journey. So I'll try and stay on point and keep it down to what you're looking for today. But a little bit about me. I grew up in the Midwest, Minnesota. It's still where I am. As a young child, teenager, I was very active, very healthy, very thin. Never had to worry about weight loss. I could eat what I wanted type of thing, and didn't gain weight. And then, got to college, and I continued that pattern pretty well with staying active and eating well. And then I would say in my 20s, I started having a family. I got married, started having babies, and working full time. And Gwen 1.0, as you refer to it, took care of everyone else and wanted to make sure everyone else's needs were met first. That was important to me. That was my love language. But without realizing it, I put myself on the back burner and put my health on the back burner as well. And, all these different layers to it, really. But it started to get harder to take the weight off after having babies, and I wasn't as active as I used to be. So the weight came on, and part of me, again, being in the Midwest, we're bigger people around here. We joke about being corn-fed, or I think the average size for women is size 16. So if you are below that, people think you're underweight. So there's all these different layers to it. And, at one point, you try working on losing weight, but when I've never had that experience of how do I even do this, it just felt overwhelming to think about losing weight and what do I do and what do I cut out and all that. So, the days go on, and I'm married. My husband's name is Scott. And of course we cook together. We eat the same things. If he wants a treat, I want a treat too, type of thing. So
no, I've experienced that as well. Like your environment, your home environment, as well as like your community environment and the culture that you live in just plays a huge impact on your ability to lose weight, and on like putting the pounds on in the first place. Like it kind of has this power over you that you don't even know that it's happening.
That's a great way to say it. And I also think too, because we do have such a strong marriage and relationship, and that unconditional love is there. Scott loved me whether I weighed 50 pounds more than I should or not. And he would never say anything, doesn't think anything of it because he loves me for who I am, which is wonderful. But also at the same time, it makes it easy to stay in that unhealthy pattern. So environment is key. You're right on that. I was a dental hygienist for 32 years, and you would think a dental office would be a little healthier mindset, but it's not. Our break room was like a trough, always with junk food and working with some younger gals. They love to order in Domino's or Jimmy John's or whatever. And they're like, Gwen, what do you want today? We'll get the order placed. And again, all these little things keep sneaking in and you don't even realize what they're doing to you. And just being that almost like a zombie, just going through life and not really paying attention to what you're eating, how much you're eating, and all those other things that factor into that. So
So,
fast. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to ask, like, at what age did you really kind of wake up and start to intentionally, or was there ever a moment, like a kind of a wake up, like a pivotal moment where you're like, I need to change my diet, I need to lose weight, I need to,
Yeah,
where you
yeah,
woke up,
absolutely.
thought,
I did get to that point, and I think for there's those years in there where I just started buying bigger clothes, hiding behind baggy sweatshirts, going to the back of family photos. So in my mind, I knew I wasn't happy with where I was at, but still not to that pivotal point. And I think that pivotal point started for me when I was in my 40s. I'm currently almost 54. But I developed an autoimmune disease. They never labeled it as lupus, but it was in that category of lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and I was miserable. Chronic fatigue was horrible. Um, I worked in Marshall, which is 36 miles from my home. There's a little town in between called Vesta, and nights home, I would often pull over in Vesta and grab a 10-15 minute nap because I was just so tired. I knew it wasn't safe for me to keep driving. Or I'd get home from work and I would take an hour nap, like my pregame nap before bedtime. It was just horrible. And I just started realizing I'm really sitting on the sidelines of life. I'm sleeping a lot, fighting this chronic fatigue. I have 3 adult kids, 2 were teenagers at that time. And I just wasn't there physically or mentally for them the way I wanted to be, the way I desired to be. But along with that autoimmune disease, I had chronic pain. I had joint inflammation, joint pain, really dealing with some struggles with my hands. And as a dental hygienist, that was a problem, obviously. And knowing I needed to do something about my weight. So, again, part of this pivotal process, which really took a long time, I was seeing a medical doctor, I was seeing a rheumatologist, and doing all the blood work and lab work, and they were giving me different medications to try to treat the symptoms. And I'm very much a science and math type person, so things need to make sense to me. So
yeah,
treating the symptoms at that moment was helpful, but what's the underlying cause? I don't believe our body attacks itself for no reason.
right?
So it took me doing some digging and doing some investigating and little Google research and finding some other alternative type treatments for autoimmune disease. And that was really, I would say, the beginning of my pivotal point where I started changing my diet. I started doing like a smoothie and kale and spinach smoothie in the mornings, and I went vegan for 5 years in this process too,
Wow.
just totally changing everything.
You were vegan for 5 years.
Vegan for 5 years, and I loved it. That was such an awakening for me because I grew up again in the Midwest where meat and potatoes every meal. So being vegan was a really great experience, and I loved it. Um, and it helped some. I think it did help reduce some inflammation that I was dealing with, but it didn't take care of everything. But really,
So,
oh, go ahead.
so, like, how much time are we talking here? Like, when you first started your, changing your diet, like eating healthier, to the point where you're like, okay, I've tweaked everything enough, I've experimented enough, and I feel like I'm there. I mean, I don't know if there's ever like a I'm done moment, but like how much time are we talking there?
That was probably 4 to 5 years of trying to do some things on my own.
Yeah.
Again, changing my diet, becoming vegan, and trying some alternative medicine options. But really, my pivotal moment that stands out in my mind was January of 2020.
Uh-huh.
So, January
Uh-huh.
of 2020. A friend of mine is a retired registered nurse, and she had been working with a health coach. And I had never heard of a health coach before. I didn't know what that was. But she said, "Here's Michelle's number. You should really give her a call and talk to her and see, what she can help you with." And I was very skeptical. I thought I should know how to do this on my own. I don't need help. And at the same time, thinking, I'm not getting anywhere. I do need help. And it's okay to ask for that help. So it took someone I trusted that knew me well enough and was comfortable enough talking about those awkward things like weight loss and those personal health journey stories. So I called Michelle and I was very hesitant. I wasn't sure what this was, but I knew I needed to do something. I was done sitting on the sidelines. I was done feeling like crap. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I knew I needed to make some changes. I just didn't know what those were. So
And
it
was this after was this after how much time did you like try to take the medical science route? I mean,
the
like
true the
the
true medical
doctors.
science, yeah. I did that for a couple of years. It probably came out to about 3 years working with the traditional medical field.
And
And
how much do you think the traditional medical field actually moved the needle for you?
I don't think they moved it at all.
Wow. But do you think you could have short circuited that, or did you have to go through that experience?
I think that's part of my story and part of my journey. So
Uh,
yes, I don't regret that at all. I think everything happens the way it needs to happen in that sense, and I learned a lot. So it did give me that window into what was going on inside me a little more with the lab work, and I could see how high the inflammation was and some other markers that was done through lab work. And again, that's my science mindset. I like that information. But I wasn't getting results, and I didn't want to be on medications that made me feel more tired or more like a zombie or more brain fog or any of that. That's not what I wanted for me. And again, I was in my 40s. I'm like, I have 60 years left to live. This isn't, I don't want to be laying in bed 60
right.
more years, that's not living. So, get busy living or get busy dying. So just kept working through things. And my health coach gave me some great ideas, some outlines of how I can transform my health. And I started with her. And then, as you know, what happened in 2020, COVID hit, right? And that just turned everything upside down. The dental office closed for me, for everyone. I was home with the kids. We were working on that homeschooling, and life was just nuts for everybody. So I kind of put a pause on my health as we navigated those first 3, 4 months of COVID life. And I wasn't getting better. And I knew I was feeling good in the beginning of 2020. So I called Michelle back in the summer of
Mhm.
2020. And I said, okay, I'm all in. What do I need to do? Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. And she was with me every step of the way. I went on to lose 60 pounds, probably in about a 7 month window of time.
Wow.
My energy went up, my inflammation went down. I was feeling better. I was sleeping better. My mindset was better. It was just completely transformational. So you talk about that 2.0 Gwen.
Yeah.
That hit in the spring of 2021, um, and I just was blown away at the difference of just eating different foods and learning more about myself and
Yeah.
increasing that self-awareness of what I was doing, and really not necessarily challenging, but questioning why I do what I do, and realizing I'm a stress eater. I'm an emotional eater. I grew up in the clean plate club,
Yeah.
all these old things all the old habits that I needed to break up with and
Yeah.
implement new habits. And that's what my health coach, Michelle, guided me on. So twofold to my story, I left dental hygiene because of the hand issues, and I became a health coach because of my experience with transforming my health. And it really wasn't that complicated. It just took
Cool.
some guidance and support. So now I've helped over 200 clients do the same thing, and it's been just the biggest whirlwind. So
That's
wasn't just
incredible.
my health and weight that changed. It was really everything for me that changed.
So, like, how do you? I mean, ultimately, at its core, you had to take personal responsibility for your actions and what you were doing to yourself, and like even like you couldn't blame the doctors because they weren't helping you in the way that you needed it. So, what do you think? Like, what how did you get to that point where you're like, I am, where you were capable of taking personal responsibility, where you saw the light, where you saw what you were doing to yourself? Like, do you have any idea of how that shift took place in your mind?
I I think it was just truly the fact of I knew I didn't want to be living the way I was living
Yeah.
because that
Yeah.
was just existing. That was just surviving. And I wanted to be thriving. I was way too young to
Was
be.
there was there a rock bottom
I
moment?
would say January 2020 was my rock bottom.
Okay.
Absolutely. My weight was the highest it's ever been. But more so than the weight was my A1C was going up, that diabetes factor. That was going up, and my doctor had wanted me to go on medication for that, which I refused because I knew so much of that is nutrition and diet based. And just the way I felt, like I said, my joints would be swollen and painful. I literally could not walk 6 blocks.
Okay.
I was in
Wow.
too much pain. So
Wow.
that was my rock bottom. It really was. When we were hiking with the kids and I'd have to stop and take a break. Um, that's not okay with me.
So, can you remember, like, what was a daily routine like January of 2020? Like, what time of day did you wake up? What did you eat? Or, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? What
Yep.
what did your rock bottom look like on a daily level?
That was probably like getting up about 5 a.m. I
Yeah.
would leave home for work by 6:45.
Okay.
Get home from work about 6 to 6:30. So long days
Mm-hmm.
with that commute time. And like I said, sometimes stopping for a nap on the way home, or definitely getting home and taking a nap.
Yeah.
And then, making dinner with the family, having dinner, and going to bed.
Yeah.
Many nights I went to bed before anyone else in the house.
Uh-huh.
Or choosing to not go to one of my kids' sporting events or activities at school because I was too tired.
Mhm.
Um, those were the rock bottom moments for me, and that the pain, obviously, swollen joints, slowed me down. And I think the true me is a go-getter. I like to be on the go and doing things and active and living life. So just sitting around doing nothing really bothered me mentally. That's not what I
So yeah.
wanted to be doing.
So what was your self-image like at
Oh,
that
it was
point
in
in
the
time?
gutter. It was in the
Yeah.
gutter. I just viewed myself as this overweight blob sitting on the couch who can't do much of anything.
Okay.
Um, and I also felt like a hypocrite as a dental hygienist trying to promote health in my patients when I'm suffering in silence myself.
Yeah.
That didn't sit well with me. That didn't align with my core values and beliefs either. So I had all these different things going on in my head, and I just knew I needed to make a change. And
So
that
when
definitely
at
rock
that point
bottom.
in your life, do you remember like the baby steps that you took? Like, what were some of the first little baby steps that you took that sent you in the direction that you are
Yeah.
today?
Some of the baby steps, for me was actually a huge step, was talking to my friend that's the
Yeah.
retired registered nurse. So being
Sure.
open and communicating and
Yep.
talking about what was going on with me for me is a huge step.
Yep.
But that was the very first baby
Yep.
step in that
Yep.
process. And then making that phone call to Michelle.
Yeah.
the health coach. That took a lot of courage.
Mm-hmm.
That was hard to do. Again, reaching out to a stranger, first of all, in hindsight, that may have been beneficial. If it had
Yeah.
been someone I knew, I might not have been as open. So I don't know about that. But I think taking that step to call a health coach, and then obviously the next baby step would be to trust her and to do what she said. And at that point, I had nothing to lose. I
Yeah.
was as miserable as I thought I could get. So,
So thinking back, what would you tell yourself? What would the Gwen of today? What advice would you give your the 2020 Gwen?
oh, if I could talk to the 2020 Gwen, is just go for it.
Yeah.
Full speed ahead. Just have faith that this is where you're supposed to be and this is going to work.
Yeah.
And there's a
Do you
plan.
do you have any regrets about your journey?
No,
No.
not the only regret I might have is just not starting sooner.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So no, I have zero regrets about anything I've done, obviously. My rheumatologist was able to release me. All of my lab work and blood work went back to being normal and healthy. With
Entirely with diet?
entirely
Yeah.
with, well, not just diet. It took
Uh-huh.
um, career change. So
Yeah.
changing my stress level
Yep.
and that mindset, that self-awareness,
So
getting
you never
more sleep.
did you ever go back to the dental office after it closed down in 2020?
I did go back part-time.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, I was having some hand issues and so I went part-time with dental hygiene, and then I was figuring out what's my next career because I'm too young to
Yeah.
retire. I enjoy earning money. I enjoy
Yeah.
working. So I had also talked to a career coach in the summer of 2020 about some different avenues I could take with my dental hygiene degree and my experience of 30 years in clinical practice. And in talking to her, she was another layer to my story. She didn't tell me that, yes, you need to get thin, but she did say when you go to interview and you're in your 50s, you want to present yourself well. You know,
Uh-huh.
have your hair done, do your makeup, buy a new outfit, whatever you need to do. If you want to lose a few pounds, lose a few pounds. So
Yeah.
she was very encouraging and motivating too. So it was just one more person that was helping point me the right direction to what I needed to do in a very kind and gentle way. Uh,
Yeah.
so all that factored in. But my health
But
coach Michelle had said,
yep.
"You'd be a great health coach. You have all this health knowledge from dental hygiene. Why not health coach?" And at
Uh-huh.
that time, doing things online wasn't normal yet, but COVID made that very possible. Um,
Mhm.
so it was just really interesting how things layered themselves.
So I kind of cut you off a little bit, but you were talking about how your blood work completely cleared up, and you did it largely through a change of career, through a change of diet. What other things were thrown into the catalyst or into the mix?
Into the mix to improve my health, I think it's all those areas. We talked about surroundings before. So when I first started my health journey which started with weight loss,
Yeah.
my husband Scott was also overweight at that time, and he was supportive of me, but not ready to join in on that weight loss. But about 2 months into my health journey, he could see the results,
Yeah.
not just with the weight, but my energy level, um, and just my smile was coming back, my spark was coming back in life, and he's like, "Okay, I think I'm ready to join you and lose weight also."
Mhm.
And he did great. He ended up losing 90 pounds, and we've kept it off, which is
Wow.
the hardest part. But it
Wow.
just gave us our life back. It gave us our
Yeah.
marriage back to be able to go
90,
a walk. 90 pounds. I mean, that's
90 pounds
yes.
over how big of a time frame? Do you remember?
I would say for him, it was pretty fast. I would put it in the 7 to 8 month range for him too.
Yep.
Um,
And what was the diet that did it for him? Like how was he tracking calories or I mean,
no,
how?
We both did the same thing. So again, when you live together, those surroundings
Yeah.
and environment helps. So he did what I did, and that was eating 6 small meals a day,
Okay.
really focusing on protein, carbohydrates coming from vegetables mostly,
Yeah.
healthy fats like almonds or avocado.
Mhm.
And yes, it was a calorie reduction, obviously, for a while to help with that weight. But eating 6 times a day is a habit we wanted to implement, and that really helps stabilize your blood sugar so you don't feel hungry throughout the day. And it works so well for him. And guys lose weight a little faster than women, we know. But he felt good, and once he started feeling good too, and he was seeing the results, it's easier. You're motivated to keep going.
Yeah.
But man, doing it together as a couple makes all the difference in the world. I don't think I would be where I am today if he hadn't joined in.
Yeah. So, how did you gain the confidence to become a health coach? Did you ever, or I mean, did you experience imposter syndrome often? You know, those types of things. Like
Yeah,
um, how did you basically, how did you get the confidence to do it?
yeah. I think I had the confidence. And again, being a dental hygienist, I'm used to talking to people one on one about
Hmm.
personal topics. It's just a different setting. So in my mind, I just had to say, okay, I'm used to talking about brushing and flossing and water picking. Now we're just going to expand on a few other areas and talk about that. I think the hard part for me was the social media aspect and acquiring my own clients. So that was the piece that I was a little nervous about at first because I wasn't used to posting on social media and to put my own story out there. That took
Right.
some confidence. But I found that once I started sharing my story, I had no
Mhm.
idea how many other people that would inspire and give people hope, that there is a change and they don't need medication and they don't have to starve themselves.
Yeah.
All these little things that go through our heads when we're wanting to make those changes. And I think there's been enough people that have said, "Oh, if Gwen can do it, I can do it," or "If Scott
Yeah.
can do it, I can do it,"
Yeah.
and that type of thing. And once you have a couple clients, your confidence goes up, and you get just like anything else, right? Like learning how to ride a bike, you're going to fall down a few times, but you get back on, and eventually you just go.
What
So
do you what do you tell the client that comes to you and says, "I've tried to lose weight my entire life. I've tried, 100 diets, and every time I fail, and I can only, for whatever reason, I can't keep it together longer than a couple days or a week, and then I regress, or what do you tell that client?"
so my comment to that is if you commit to me 100%, I won't
Hmm.
let you fail.
Hmm. Hmm.
Borrow my confidence until you
Hmm.
have enough of your own.
Okay. And so then, how do you keep that person accountable to doing the things that you prescribe?
Right. Well, they have to want it, right? So that goes back to that commitment part. So I always do a free health consultation with anyone
Uh-huh.
interested in learning more.
Yeah.
And at the end of that conversation, there's no pressure. I say on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to improving your health?
Hmm.
And if they're not at an 8, 9, or 10, I say you're not ready yet. And when you're ready, call me back. I'll be here.
Well, yeah, that's really smart.
I'm not,
And
yeah, you can't make anyone make those changes if they're not ready.
how often do you have people do the consultation and then back out? Or, I mean, you know what I mean? Like or are most people there at the 8, 9, 10?
I think when most people reach out to me, they are very close to being
Mm-hmm.
ready. But I think the hard part is knowing you're going to be giving up things that have comforted you or that you've really enjoyed or that's been your lifestyle. And
Yeah.
it's hard to let go of those things.
Yeah.
I don't have statistics for you, but quite often I might do a health consultation with someone and then 6 months later they'll reach back out and say, "Okay, I'm ready."
Mm-hmm.
And usually they've had a medical appointment where their cholesterol went up, or they have a wedding coming up and they'd like to
Mm-hmm.
look a little differently for that or something. They might have a big event that's motivating them. And that's okay. but we always focus on that why. Why does this matter? It's not those 3 numbers on the scale. That's not what matters.
Mhm.
So getting into that emotional connection to why we want to be healthy, why you want to be more active. So it's different for everyone, but it's been just so amazing to share those stories with people.
Cool. Well, what about yeah? So let's let's walk us through a day in your life today. What do you all got going on? I know you're a health coach, but what other things you have? In
So
your,
my life today is completely different than it was in 2020 for sure.
yeah,
Yes, so I left the dental world and I do miss it. I miss the people. I health coach, which can fit into the nooks and crannies beautifully in life. So I can do that. I typically on Mondays and Tuesdays will focus on my health coaching. And then I opened another business called Core Bungee Fitness.
yeah,
Yes, in
wow,
Redwood Falls, Minnesota, and that has been such a joy. I need to be around some people. So
yeah,
health coaching at home is great. Phone calls and Zooming is certainly convenient. But I need exercise, and we need to find ways that bring us joy. And Bungee Fitness is a low impact workout, which is great if someone does have joint issues, like I had. And we don't have an indoor pool in Redwood
yeah,
Falls. So finding some low impact movement that many body types can do is challenging.
mm,
And Core Bungee Fitness is my business, but I saw Bungee Fitness online a couple years ago and fell in love with it. So started looking in the area for any bungee fitness studio, and I couldn't find anything. So here's my personality. This is Gwen. I went to Oklahoma to get trained how to
yeah.
become an instructor and how to open my own business so I could bring that to our community. And it has been amazing and so much fun. So I have classes 6 days a week. And my every day is different for me. Some days I have one class, some days I have four. I am the lead instructor, so I teach most of them.
Yeah.
Um, but again, it's a mixture of health coaching, the bungee fitness, being a mom to my 3 adult kids, which I love. And last year I became a grandmother. So
Wow.
my granddaughter lives 6 blocks away from me, so I love being available to play with her and help my daughter out. So life is just so full. I just feel so rich
Wow,
and
that's
so
amazing.
blessed. Yeah.
So, like, can you like hypothesize or kind of go into speculation? Like, what experiences do you think you've had today that you never would have had? Like, say Gwen 1.0 just kind of continued on with medical science and didn't change all the habits and just kind of went into a normal retirement of somebody like, I don't know, reading books in the study or something
Right.
like that. What
Right.
can you kind of think of, like, what kind of experiences have you had in your new life that you never would have dreamed of having 8 years ago?
Right. Yeah. 8 years ago, really wasn't doing much of anything. My medical condition was keeping me pretty grounded at home. Scott and I went to Germany, and we
Wow.
had yeah, we went into Amsterdam. We flew into Amsterdam and spent a few days there. We rented bicycles and rode bike around Amsterdam. We went to Germany, and our niece lives there, so we were able to go with her and just did tons of walking and more bicycle renting and had a great time. And that is something I never would have considered 8 years ago.
Cool.
That would have been out of the question. Um, Walking through Ramsey Park.
Yeah.
Again, we have a beautiful park in our community. From our house through the park and back home is about 3.5 miles.
Mhm.
And to be able to do that again is incredible. So that had to go on the wayside too. And Ramsey Park is just a sanctuary to me. So it just means so much to me to be able to go through that again. And I keep thinking about my future self. So not only what have I done or what am I doing right now, but how do I want to show up for my grandkids and what do I want to be able to do with them? How do I want to be when I'm 74? So 20 years from now, how do I want to be showing up? And I ran a 5K. That was something I did a couple years ago. I always said I'm not a runner, never a runner. And again, as you're feeling good and this life just comes back into you, I joined Run Club in town, and I started out as a walker, but I ended up running a 5K. And that was just something I never in a million years thought I would ever do or say.
What is it? So what is it? I mean, it must feel amazing to watch a client completely transform.
Oh,
Like, and like, how long are you typically working with a client before you kind of see, a major shift in
yeah, yep.
uh,
There isn't a set answer to that. Everyone's health journey is different. So
yeah.
I have clients that maybe don't need a weight loss uh,
Uh-huh.
portion, but they want to learn healthier habits. They would like to work on that mindset piece.
Yeah.
Maybe they're struggling with something else in life. So I can work with them on that too. And they
Hmm.
choose how long I work with them. I don't have any requirement or a contract
Uh-huh.
in that regard. If someone has a lot of weight to lose, I might be working with them longer.
Hmm.
So it really depends upon what their needs are. It's very
Do,
individually based, not a cookie cutter system.
yeah. Do you ever find yourself starting with like weight loss coaching and it almost turns into like morphs more into like a mindset coaching type thing?
It totally is a mindset
Yeah.
coaching
Yeah.
overall, and the weight loss is a side component. That's
Yeah.
a side effect to the program. So in my coaching philosophy, we work on our healthy surroundings, as we talked about. Your environment is a huge part of that. Your stress level, your mindset piece on that. How are you navigating stress? We talk a lot about sleep, our sleep habits, our sleep hygiene. That's a huge piece of our overall health. And yes, we talk about hydration.
Yeah.
Food is a big piece of that too, but it's and healthy motion. Are we getting some movement? Are we getting some exercise? And again, that's going to vary person to person too, with what they can do and what they're able to. So we
But I,
really have those 6 macro habit areas, is what I refer to them as. Yeah,
no, I feel like you just nailed the like the pillars of health. Like
yeah,
if and it
exactly.
does it feels like if any one of those areas is not dialed in to a certain extent, like you're gonna continue spinning your wheels
Right,
and
exactly.
and and not hardly make any progress.
Yeah, yep.
But I did cut you off a little bit earlier, or at least I asked the question like, what does it feel like to experience a complete transformation in one of your clients, and like can you describe it at all?
That's really indescribable. That's so emotional. And I can relate it to my own story too. But when someone else is making those changes, and you can just hear the positivity in their voice, you can hear the energy, you can hear the life coming back. They're doing the hard work, right? I'm just the coach. I'm just the cheerleader on the side. But man, to watch that transformation in someone is just beyond heartwarming. And when people maybe give me a chance before they do bariatric surgery and they're successful and they don't need that surgery.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, right? I mean, I don't even know what words to use for that. It's just phenomenal. Or if we can help prevent people from needing high blood pressure medication or diabetes med, or help them reduce those medications. I love the holistic approach, and really, wanting to help people learn sustainable lifestyle habits is the key. But it,
So,
it's it's just
it,
mind blowing what we can do on our own if we give ourselves a chance.
is there anything that can be done about the person that simply is resisting, habit changes, or just is in kind of that is stuck in kind of that victim mindset of like, oh, it's not my fault. Like the world is making me
Yeah,
do these things. Like, can you do anything for that person?
yeah. I actually do have some resources that I utilize in my coaching sessions. So we talk about the drama triangle, where we're in that victim mindset, and moving over to that empowerment triangle, where they can take control of themselves. So I think the way to go about that, obviously, you can lead by example. Ask the open-ended questions. What's holding you back? What fear do you have around this change? Or, um, What do you need to let go of so that you can have what you desire? People need to come to their own awakening, that own self-awareness piece. I can't make them, I can't do anything for them until they want that. But
Yeah.
sometimes we need to ask those questions to help them realize what they really want and desire in life
And have you seen the shift happen? Have you seen it?
all the time.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. Um, well, yeah. Anything else you want to talk about, Gwen?
Uh, no, not really. I think, for anyone out there that maybe is feeling stuck,
Mm-hmm.
I think having a health coach, a life coach, someone maybe not emotionally connected to you, it was so
Mm-hmm.
beneficial. And that isn't something I would have done on my own. It took a friend suggesting it. I think that can be just so life changing and life giving to do something different like that. And I'm not bashing our medical field at all. I think we need them. They do amazing things, but there's other avenues to take along with that. So I certainly needed the medical field initially. I did need some of those medications, but they weren't asking the questions. They weren't getting to the root cause
Mm-hmm.
of some of those things. So I think
Do you think, was there something your doctor could have said that would have, like, what if your doctor had said, you don't need this medicine. You can actually just fix your diet and your sleep and your exercise, and like, would that have, do you think that would have helped you at that moment in time?
it might have.
Uh-huh.
I do respect the medical field.
Yeah.
But I will say my rheumatologist himself was very unhealthy. He was probably around 400 pounds. So it's kind of hard to take a medical professional
It is.
seriously when they're sitting next to you completely unhealthy like that too.
And I know exactly what you mean. And it's funny because, like, you can see these humans, or you can see these people, like, they're in their fields. They may be very knowledgeable, but like, the reality is that they are stuck in a very similar situation that you are. It's like overworked, overstressed, not sleeping properly, not eating properly, but like, they're still just doing their jobs, and like, they're given all this advice and
Yeah,
stuff. It's so much less powerful coming from someone where you're looking at them and it's like, well, what what do you know about this?
yeah. It's nice when you can visit with someone that's walks the walk and
Yeah.
talks the talk, right?
Yep.
And I have had clients that are physicians and nurse
Yeah.
practitioners and nurses, and yes, their schedules are horrible. Their
Yeah.
lifestyles are so challenging,
Yeah.
based around work. So it's been interesting having the medical professionals as clients,
Yeah.
which is great, and they'll tell you like the doctors I've had to like, we had one class on nutrition. We were never taught how to help people lose weight. So the old saying of, oh yeah, just eat a little less and exercise more. That might work for a few people, but that doesn't work for the majority of us. So
Yeah.
let's talk about those cortisol levels. Let's talk about how much water you're drinking,
Yeah.
and all those other little things like you and I just mentioned too. So again, we need our medical professionals, but they're also limited and they are human. So giving
Yeah.
them some
Well,
grace on that as well. But
I imagine sometimes their expertise might get in their own way. Like, they might come at you and be like, "Well, I know, I should know more about this because I'm educated." But like, so I wonder if that creates some blockages sometimes in
it,
their own
it
mind.
certainly could.
Yeah.
I would agree. It certainly can. So I think for them to reach out to me is probably a really big deal, right?
Yeah.
I don't have that MD label behind my name, but they trust me. Again, they get to know me through social media or word of mouth, and at the Redwood Medical Clinic, they refer to me as the Gwen Russell program.
Oh,
So word is out
cool.
there, and that's good. Yes, yes.
Oh, what an honor. What an honor.
It is. That's small town life, for sure. But I think we're all capable of making change. If you're not happy with where you're at in life, whether that's your marriage, your work environment, your health, you're not stuck, right? We can make those changes. We can make choices. We can move to a different country. We can lose weight. We can change what we eat. If going to a family gathering stresses you out, don't go. We are adults and we can make those choices, and drop some of that people pleasing habits, and it's okay to create a new you. So
Yeah.
don't be afraid to do that. You had asked about a mantra.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah,
would love. I do. Do you have a personal mantra? I would love to hear that.
I do have a mantra, and it's really pretty simple, but it's helped me. And I learned this in Run Club several years ago when I was working on that first 5K of mine. So, spiritually empowered. I am a Christian, so Romans chapter 8, verse 11 goes along with that. So, we're spiritually empowered. And then mentally strong. We are able to make our own decisions. And my Bible verse for that is 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. And then physically able. So I am spiritually empowered, I am mentally strong, and I am physically able.
Oh, cool.
Now,
How often do you think you have to draw off of that mantra? Or
daily. Daily.
daily? Yeah, I believe it.
It is a battle. So I have learned so much about myself and habits in the last 5 years. But some of my vices are I am a stress eater, I'm an emotional eater, and that is a really tough thing to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So learning how to navigate that is not easy. And I don't think I won't say that. I'm going to have to work on that for a long time. Hopefully I get to a point where I can let my guardrails down a little bit. But right now, even 5 years in, I still catch myself wanting to rely on that comfort of emotional eating or stress eating.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm the same way, and I don't know if it's a Midwestern thing, but like it's a human experience. I feel like, but I emotionally eat, I stress eat, I eat out of boredom, I eat out of habit, and so all these things work against you, and you're like, I don't like carrying all these extra pounds around, but yeah, the first step is awareness. It is
exactly.
first, yeah.
That is key, the self-awareness
Yeah.
piece. And then as
Yeah.
we work on eliminating those things, what can we integrate
Yeah.
is something I say a lot too. So again, the bungee fitness has been a great outlet for me to integrate something different and fun, and obviously that's not for everybody, but finding different habits, finding different things that you can start learning about, maybe taking up yoga, woodworking, whatever that might be for you. Just having more healthy hobbies and habits to implement when you are working on those changes. We could talk for another whole hour on the sugar addiction piece. I'm a sugar junkie.
Yep.
And I often would say one cookie is too many and 10 isn't enough.
Yeah.
So learning little things like a 3-bite rule. If I have a piece of cake or pie or something in front of me, enjoying 3 bites of it and being satisfied and then walking away. So little things like that are tidbits that have helped me, and I share those with clients to hopefully help them also. So yeah, it is.
Oh yeah. I empathize with sugar and storm eating. Storm eating for me is I just go into these huge storm eating sessions, but I'm it's all about learning and
Right.
and learning from the experience. That's my mantra is never stop growing.
Yes,
And
that's a great.
I love that one because even when you're in your worst moments, that you can kind of bring that up and be like, oh yeah, like this is okay, this is for my own personal growth, and it's this is doing me good, and
Absolutely.
and so that's why I really like that one. It just kind of pops up whenever I need it. Yeah.
Yeah. Never stop learning, never stop growing, evolving,
Yeah.
moving, all the things. Just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I like that it's interchangeable for anyone, because you can be, the least personally developed person on earth, and I don't even know how to describe that, or you can be, the person that there's just never a stopping point, and it works for anybody.
Right.
But
Exactly. I agree. That's excellent.
Well, let's end it with what are you most grateful for about your transition, your transformation, your
Oh,
new your Gwen 2.0?
I'll try not to cry, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just most grateful for having my life back.
Yeah,
Period.
yeah,
I
yeah,
just uh,
yeah,
5, 6 years ago, I thought it was just kind of over
yeah.
in a sense. So I am so grateful that I can be active and participate in life and be present for my kids and my granddaughter and my husband and show up the way I want to be showing up. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, yeah,
Well, that was a great conversation, Gwen. Thank you
yeah.
so much
Thank you, thank you.
for doing this. I
Yeah.
really
Oh,
appreciate
I thank you. I'm so honored and always
it.
great to visit with you.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got some value out of hearing Gwen Russell's story of transformation. If you want to find out more about us and our mission, check out brilliantlifejourney.com.